I do have Mr. Sam Boozin working in the background on the wheels of steel, and I'm sure we'll get Sam in to say a few words once I run out of breath. So, qualifying. In practice, we had Tony Kloosterman top of the pile, 2/10 quicker than anybody else. But for those of you that have driven this track, you'll know it's for me. It was one of those tracks that I just used to dread driving. I think coming out of the I don't know what the corners are called, but the bone on the chop. I just used to crash every time. But the more and more that I drove the track, I started to understand it, and I wouldn't say I love it, but it's certainly not on my tracks to avoid anymore. It is a flowing track. It has got some tight, twisty sections. Probably got a bit of everything. It's got a few corners that you can run wide on. Um, and it's also got a half decent not straight. So there are some overtaking opportunities. As usual, we haven't got a very big field for the sprint series, but as we've seen in the past, we get these small fields of 10 or 12 drivers, and the racing can be absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. We got our usual 3 races. So we've got the 15-minute qualifying session for race 1. And then races 2 and race 3 will be a full reverse grid of everybody that's in the race. So, we get to see whether the fast guys can make their way through, or whether the not so fast drivers can, stay in the way and hopefully get a win on the board for themselves. So we've got about 3 minutes gone so far. George McClay's topping the times with a 1 minute 20.5, and Tony Kloosterman is the only other driver in the 1 minute 20s at the moment with a 0.8. I think Johnny Brandon was in the 120s in practice. Yarrick was as well, as was Steve Lavallee. So I'm sure them guys can get themselves up the front of the grid. Apologies if I do go quiet. I'm just grabbing a quick drink. So, as I said, penultimate meeting. We've got Road Atlanta tonight, and then in 2 weeks' time, we will be crowning the Sprint Series champion from the new Silverstone circuit in Great Britain. So for those of you that are planning on racing there and haven't bought it yet, then start digging deep because you're going to need it. A lot of the drivers obviously use these races as a bit of a warm up, bit of a see what happens with the setups over a run, ready for the main series next weekend. Again, that will be the penultimate meeting of the season. So we've got a lot to look forward to. In the background, things are progressing. We're nearly ready for what will be our 8th season when we come back in the new year after Christmas. And also, all the nasty plans are going on in the background, ready for our Christmas race of champions. I know the people that drove in it last year, we had an absolute hoot. It was just hilarious from start to finish. Last season, we took the V8s round an oval. We took them round the Roval at Charlotte. We did, I think, Indianapolis road course, and we polished it all off with some rallycross, which was more like ice racing. So those of you that weren't with us last Christmas, or those of you that missed the Christmas special last year, make sure you get in early and get signed up for it this season once it all gets announced. So back to qualifying. Currently, we have Johnny Brandon on pole with a 120.1. Tony Kloosterman in second with a 120.3, and George McClay in third with a 120.5. I did hear a comment from George earlier on that Tony has been practicing too much for this track. I'm pretty sure Tony has been practicing too much for this track, but it is in the past one of those tracks that Tony's done well at anyway. So you do expect him to be up there. Don't know whether we'll get any fireworks like we did last week. There was a few incidents that we spoke about. So with the close quarters racing that we get in this series. And a car that turns like a boat and doesn't stop, there's always the potential for that. So, anybody watching, if you got any questions, chuck them in the live chat. I have got a feed to it so I can see what's going on. Or if anybody fancies jumping in the booth and giving me a hand, just give me a shout and we'll get it on. So qualifying is halfway through at the moment. I'm just going to sit back for a couple of minutes and let you enjoy the cars. So we are almost 2/3 of the way through the qualifying session. It's getting a bit tight at the top now. Johnny Brandon with a 121.1, should I say, and Tony Kloosterman with a 120.1 as well. George McClay still in third with a 120.4, but we've got another couple of drivers in the 120s. So a little bit about Road Atlanta. Officially, it's 12 turns, but it's one of those strange American tracks that has got a 10A and a 10B and a 12A and a 12B, I believe. Obviously holds a lot of events. It's a little tadge over 2.5 miles, so quite a small road course compared with some of the others that we've been to. But as I said earlier, it's a good track to drive. I don't find the surface particularly grippy. Is usually my only gripe around here. But the drivers tonight will have 3 different sets of conditions in the races. So race 1 is going to be a morning race. It's currently about 10 to 8 in the morning sim time. Race 2 is an afternoon session, so that's usually when the track is at its hottest and slickest. And then, as we've been doing for the rest of the whole of the season, race 3 will be a sunset race. So usually by the end of the race, the place is in darkness. The drivers are relying on their not particularly good headlights on these cars, and yeah, it seems to change everything with your reference points, your braking points, your gear changes. So that's always an interesting end to the night. Um, as we go forward through the evening, any drivers that are out there that are members of the league and they've missed the first race and they want to join in the second or the third race, make sure you drop me a message either on Facebook or on our Discord channel, and I'll make sure I add you to the grid. No, we only have 3 drivers so far that haven't set a time. Vernon Wiley hasn't set a time. Nikolai Bogotyrev hasn't set a time, but I think he may have disconnected. And Lane O'Connor hasn't set a time, but he's probably fallen asleep. At the top, no change at the moment. Still Johnny Brandon with a 120.154 and Tony Kloosterman with a 120.179. Johnny is still on track, trying to better his time, and I'm pretty sure Tony will be pedaling it right to the end of qualifying to try and get that coveted pole position, and hopefully lead the race off into the first corner and lead from start to finish. I think that's usually the ideas with the faster guys when they have a qualifying session in a race. But as we said earlier, reverse grids for race 2 and 3. If the faster guys win a second race or a third race, they've usually had to work hard for it. So unless they've had a particularly bad race before and ended up getting the pole position through the reverse grid. But yeah, so we have got just over a minute and a half left on qualifying, and nothing is changing yet. I shall be back in about 1 minute just to give my voice a rest. Okay, people, so as we come to the end, towards the end of qualifying, still no changes at the top. Johnny Brandon is still holding on to that pole position, although he's not out on track at the moment. Tony Kloosterman is. So I'm just going to follow Tony around on this final lap, see if he can better his time of a 120.179. And no, it looks like Tony must have had a problem somewhere around that lap because he didn't get a time registered. We still have Vernon Wiley is out on track. He's currently sitting on a 123.003. See if Vernon can put a better time in. He's just coming round the bone of the pork chop at the moment. Vernon just manages to keep the car under control there, and he's bailed out and gone into the pits. So, yeah, that looks like our starting grid for the race. So we have Johnny Brandon on pole, Tony Kloosterman in second, George McClay third, Rich Warmingham fourth, Jarek Sabula in fifth, Steve LaValle in sixth, Jason Rebelo in seventh, Ronald Moons in eighth, Andrew Hoffman in ninth, and Vernon Wiley in 10th. And then we have the two drivers that didn't set a time, which was Nikolai Bogatyrev and Lane O'Connor. So cars are lining up on the grid. Still waiting for a few people to join the grid.
It's the longest 2 minutes in your lonely life, Clyde.
I've got fireworks going off outside my window, so that's really not helping with my hearing. I think we're just waiting for George and Tony. No, George is in. Johnny's in. Just waiting on Tony. Still waiting on Tony. And there he is. Perhaps he just had a senior moment and had a little nap. Engine notes are rising as we get ready for the green. And green, green, green. Away we go. Good start by Johnny. Slightly better start by Tony, but I don't think he'll be able to do anything with it. I thought he was going to try one around the outside there. George slots into third under pressure from Rich Warmingham. It looks like Tony's going to give it the full beans on Johnny and the first lap just to see if he can either crack open a gap or force Johnny into a mistake, which not something that happens very often, but it can do.
We have Andrew Hoffman and Vernon Wiley out at the back of the field.
Everything concertina's up into the tight right-hander. Johnny Brandon still in the lead. Not sure if there was any accidents but towards the back of the grid, but I certainly didn't hear anything. Tony seems to be carrying a little bit more speed through the corner than Johnny, but Johnny seems to be getting away a bit better. So whilst they battle out, let me just go back and have a look what's going on further down the grid. So, Jarek has got himself up into fourth place ahead of Rich Warmingham and is currently putting George McClay under pressure. Not quite sure what happened to Rich. Justin Rebelo is under pressure from Steve LaValle. Ronald Moons is going. Oh, Lane O'Connor is awake because I can see him driving. And we've got Vernon bringing up the rear. But, Vernon's doing the right thing. He's using it for practice. Andrew Hoffman looks like he's got some damage already. I'm not quite sure what happened to Andrew. I'll wind that back and have a look.
Yeah, Andrew was a bit wide in the first aces on the lap one at lap one.
Oh, big lunge from no, it was quite a good move from Vernon, actually, to be fair. Andrew just seems to be oh, Andrew, yeah, I see. He just lost it on his own, but he already had the damage by then. But he's been in, he's had his fast repair, and he's back out on the track. Right, let's have a look what's happening up the front. So, Tony's still behind Johnny. Johnny's pulled a little bit of a gap.
Jaroslav out of the track. Went a bit wide on turn one.
So we've got, Yarrick has gone wide on turn one and gifted that position back to Rich Warmingham. And a few other drivers have taken advantage of that. So Yarrick is now behind Ronald Moons, Mr. Racing in Socks himself. Steve LaValle still putting pressure on Justin. Rich Warmingham's all on his lonesome, as is George. And Tony is half a second behind Johnny. Manages to close up through the tight, twisty section.
Yeah. I'm with Steven right now.
Okay, so let's have a look at Steve LaValle crawling all over the back of Justin. So, will Justin crack under the pressure?
I can see George. Yeah,
closest battle we've got.
George is closing to under Tony. He's 3 tenths now behind Tony.
Meanwhile, up the front, we've got George closing in on Tony. Just going to switch over to that little battle for half a lap, see what George can do. So, yeah, George is still putting the pressure on Tony. Obviously, Sam's chirping in whenever he can. So, apologies if I say something that Sam's already said, but I never know whether he's talking to me live or whether he's just whispering sweet nothings in my ear. So, could sound a bit funny, but yeah, George seems to have, I don't know whether he's got into a groove or whether Tony has overheated his tyres slightly. I think he may have done. He's just got really loose there, and George has took second place. Yeah, I was just going to say I don't know if Tony's overheated his tyres trying to get with Johnny, but yeah, that's position gain there for George. Let's see if Tony can come back on him.
And Steve just passed Justin right after that, at the end of the little straight.
Yeah, so the two passes that we was concentrating on have both happened
at the same time.
Yeah, and I fully expect. I would expect Steve would drive away from Justin, maybe, and I think Tony is obviously going to try his damnedest to get his second position back. Still a long way to go in the race. You know, we're only 6.5 minutes in. So, you know, no need for heroics yet. Interesting to see as well whether George can now chase down Johnny just to prove that George has got into that rhythm, or whether Johnny's gonna, just cruise away and see what happens, because Tony is putting all sorts of pressure on George. So George has had a couple of lockups in the last few corners. So whether he's feeling that pressure, we'll soon find out.
Yeah, George have to be a bit defensive because Tony is right behind, so maybe complicated to catch Johnny right now.
Yeah, not that I've ever been in second position, but it is one of those tricky positions where you want that win, but you also don't want to make a mistake, lose your second place to third, or make a bigger mistake and ended up losing your podium position totally.
Yeah. And George is pretty good chasing the first place.
Tony is drifting. Yeah, and that's the difference between the good drivers and the bad drivers. If I'd have done that drift that Tony just did, I would have ended up parked on top of the fence with a blown engine, no panels on the car. But sometimes you see these guys and they go in and the car is out of control, but somehow they just get it back under control, and it amazes me sometimes. Victor Tanaka, if you ever get the chance, just watch him race. You think, how did he do that? How did he not die? It's different class.
Yeah,
However, that has given George a bit of breathing space. So now we'll get to see whether George can chase down Johnny or not.
yeah, I can show the last time delta between maybe George and Johnny to see who is faster. Here we go.
So I believe, that gap. I looked at it. It was a second. It went out to 1.1. He's now getting it under a second. So I think George is closing on Johnny. And I think down the back straight here as well, there's quite a big draft effect. So if George is in that, that's certainly going to help him.
Yeah, he's closing, definitely closing. Is 8 tenths behind Johnny, and it tends to go down. So maybe in a few laps we'll
Yeah.
have a great battle for first.
But, as we always say, catching is one thing, passing is another.
Yeah, it's true. And this track is tricky to pass. You can't pass, I think, in the S's, or it, it could be a really bold move, and you may end up in the wall. You have almost the two straight, the two back straight, I must say, to try and move on
Yeah,
the braking.
I have, believe it or not, passed somebody through the S's on this track, and I can't remember whether it was in this series or a different series, but I basically cocked up my entry to the S's and ended up offline. And I think the person in front of me probably shat themselves because they didn't know what I was going to do, and I ended up overtaking them. And it was one of my greatest moves ever.
Yeah, I, I I was about to say, was it Pete in the grass? But yeah.
It could have been, yeah, yeah.
As we talk, George is right behind Johnny right now, so
Yeah, let's have a look at that, because if Johnny slows George down, that could bring Tony back into it. So we could end up with a three-way battle. And just some news on the Discord channel: we will be joined by Mr. Mike Frost for races 2 and 3. So George had a look there, but Johnny managed to close the door quite easily. Where are we in the race? So we're just over halfway now. And I think Tony is definitely closing on these two. Whether he's used all his tyres up or not will be another thing. Meanwhile, further down the grid, we have Rich Warmingham in fourth, Steve LaValle fifth. So not really a great deal going on down the other end of the grid. Apologies for concentrating on this battle at the front, but I think it's going to get tasty with about 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, we still have Justin right behind Steve LaValle. He's still 5 tenths behind. You may catch up Steve before the end of the
Yeah,
race.
that surprised me, to be honest, because the way Steve was hassling him in the opening few laps, I fully expected Steve to drive away once he got past. But full marks to Justin. He's tucked in behind, and one little mistake from Steve, and he gets that position back.
Yeah, and maybe Steve cooked his tire up, trying to
Yeah,
pass.
definitely. It's easily done in this car, as we might have seen with Tony. George seems a little bit better under brakes than Johnny. Although whether Johnny's doing the good old, slow the car down on the apex and get a better exit, you never know with Johnny. I'm sure we'll ask him after the race, and he'll tell us a pack of lies anyway. So
Yeah, he's tried to defend his position also. So
yeah, if George this close, it'll be interesting now to see what sort of a tow he gets, and then Tony's just clawed a lot of time back under brakes there as well. You see George closing, but at the end of the straight comes a bit too quick. It's if he's going to try anything here, it's going to be a last-minute lunge. And Johnny's gone to the middle of the track defending. Ooh, we nearly touch mirrors. Oh, side by side. Keep it clean, guys. Tony's getting his nose in there as well. It's good racing, that, guys. Nice and clean. Tony's car is really twitchy. Sorry, I keep changing track halfway through a sentence, but I just keep spotting things. But good bit of driving there from them guys, Sam. Side by side for a couple of corners that could easily have ended in disaster.
yeah, it's true. But yeah, they are really good at the front, so we can expect to have a clean race like that.
Yeah, I think I might have been tempted to sneeze and twitch one way or the other. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Pete.
It's too easy if you pass by punting someone else.
No, not if it's a bodily function like a sneeze. That's allowed.
Yeah. A little door banging and up.
Trouble is with contact in this car is with the iRacing damage model as it is, and I know we're getting a new one, but a door rub can mean nothing, or a door rub can blow your engine. It's a bit strange. So, if you put yourself in that position, that's the risk you have to take, and unfortunately, you have to live with the consequences.
Yeah, it's a bit bad for now. When you don't have the big netcode thing in, it's always a slight contact and you end up pretty clean at the end. But with the netcode we have, it's sometimes quite hard.
Yeah, most definitely. George, I don't think George backed off on that last lap. I think that the side-by-side action just let Johnny get away a little bit, but he's definitely back on his tail, and Tony is back on George's tail. So we'll see what's coming up. We're going to have the long drag down the straight again. So George is closing. See if he tries. Yeah, he's gone the same way again. So he's going to try and go round the outside for the left-hander, which gives him the inside for the right-hander.
You have now the inside for three corners almost, but not a good
Yeah,
exit. Yeah, you see Tony is now on the inside, so
I think George can pull that off if he can just carry a little bit more speed round that outside of the left-hander. But put yourself in a position there, and Tony's going to take that position away now.
yeah, and Johnny defended pretty well. He closed the door enough to don't allow George to have the speed at the exit. So
Yeah, I watched Johnny on both of them occasions, and basically what he does is he puts his car in the middle of the track to force George out as wide as possible, and then he manages to get enough of the apex that it makes it really tight for the car trying to overtake him, which, as you rightly said, then ruins their exit.
yeah, and this battle is going to bring Rich Warmingham in it if they are slow enough. Rich is catching the last 4 minutes. He catch 3 seconds, so it's not so far behind.
No, that's very true, and it'd be interesting. Tony Klusterman's a wily old fox. He's seen George's couple of attempts at getting past Johnny, so I wonder if Tony's got a different trick up his sleeve to try and make a pass.
Yeah, they are really driving different way. George and Tony. Maybe Tony will have the key.
Or maybe he's just going to use the Chris Jackson coming through.
Yeah, yeah, it could be fun for the podcast next week.
Yeah, apologies to everybody for not doing the podcast last week. I had a bit of a family emergency going on, so I couldn't make it. And as a podcast team, we decided to postpone it for a week. So we'll all be back in the chairs Monday night with our usual assortment of fun, frolic, seriousness, and generally talking rubbish. So we're not long left now.
It's the
What do you
end.
reckon, Sam?
Yeah,
One more
it's
lap
the end.
after this?
No, it's the end.
This is the last lap, yeah?
Last corner. It's pretty close, but yeah, Johnny, well done.
Tony just touched the grass at the end there
And
and then disappears in a puff of smoke. So,
yeah, Justin passed Steve
yeah, he did.
somewhere.
Yeah, well done, Justin. Yeah, I don't know whether Steve made a little mistake at the end there, or whether Justin just got it down on that drag down the straight. But yeah, good race one, I think, Sam. Johnny got into the lead. He had pressure from Tony, then he had pressure from George, then he had pressure from Tony again. Managed to withstand all that pressure. And yeah, if that race is anything like the next three going to be, then it'll be a good night of racing.
Yeah, for sure. I just watched back on the broadcast. Everyone saw it. Steve made a little mistake and Justin passed through at the end of the SS.
Okay, so our finishing order for race one is first Johnny Brandon, second Tony Klusterman, and third podium position to George McClay. Rich Warmingham comes in fourth, Justin Rebelo in fifth, Steve Lavallee sixth, Yarrick Sabula in seventh, Ronald Moons eighth, Lane O'Connor ninth, Andrew Hoffman 10th, Vernon Wiley 11th, and Nikolai Bogotyrev didn't take the grid. So we will be back in about 10 minutes' time for race two from Road Atlanta. Be sure to join us then. See you soon. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Racetech V8 ESC Sprint Series, brought to you live by EC Racing TV from Road Atlanta in America. So, Sam, race one, really good battle up front. Johnny Kloosterman, bloody hell! Now that's a weird thing to think about, isn't it?
This is
That
doing something
uh,
to talk to Monday
that
on the
that's
podcast.
just frightened the life out of me just thinking about it. Actually, it's like Tony's head on Johnny's body, or Johnny's head on Tony's body. Yeah. Ugh. Anyway, sorry. So yeah. Johnny. I nearly said it again. Johnny Brandon qualified on pole, led from start to finish, but it wasn't as easy as that sounds. So pressure from Tony and pressure from George. So this time, those three guys starting at the back of the field. It's going to be interesting, Sam, watching them coming through.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. The, I think the one who wins this one will be the first to pass everyone else, without a scratch.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong there. Although just seeing just watching Johnny drifting around the corner, sorry. Just seeing how difficult it was for George and Tony to get past Johnny, that will probably bring into play the likes of Rich Warmingham, maybe. If they get out in front, they're going to be difficult to overtake. So we might have another different winner.
Yeah. It would be great to have someone like Rach or maybe Steve or Justin.
Yeah, definitely. So I am going to focus on Vernon and Andrew at the start. Obviously, some of the guys at the back don't get the coverage that they normally get. So, I'll give them a little bit of coverage at the start. So we've got Vernon on pole, then Andrew, Ronald Moons, Yarrick Sabula, Steve LaValle, Justin Rebelo, Richard Warmingham, George McClay, Tony Kloosterman, Johnny Brandon, and welcome to Mr. Mike Frost. So the engine notes are rising, and we wait for the green lights, and we are go. Great start there by Andrew Hoffman, who's going to lead into the first corner. Ronald Moons from third is putting on a move as well. It's going to tighten up here. They're 2x2. Oh, Ronald gets a bit of a wiggle on. Vernon down to fourth, but good start by Steve LaValle. He's up to third already. So Andrew Hoffman leads with Ronald Moons chasing him down. I'm just going to have a quick flick to the back and see how the fast guys are going.
Tony is the first one of the fast.
So, yeah, as Sam has just said, Tony is the first one out of last race top three. There's a bit of a bottleneck there. George McClay is currently second out of those. And Johnny Brandon is still near the back, but starting to make some moves. So Clyde goes back to the front. Let's see what's happening. We've still got Andrew Hoffman in the lead, with Ronald Moons in second place. And according to my screen, Pace Car in third place. That's good. So Steve LaValle in third. Not yet making an impression on these front two, but long way to go.
Yeah, Johnny catching and he's putting a move on George right now. At least he tried. Yeah, he's on the inside, he will pass him.
Yeah, I'll concentrate on this battle up the front. Looks like there's a really good battle in the midfield with the guys trying to come through. But up front, Ronald is doing his best to put pressure on Andrew, but I think the faster Ronald's trying to drive, the more wild his car is getting. So Might be a just sit there for a couple of laps, cool your tyres down. But then, can you do that with Steve Lavalley catching you from behind? So the usual racing driver predicaments.
Yeah, Steve is catching, but Tony also. And Ronald on the inside.
Yeah, Ronald's making his move now. I think Andrew gave that up. Probably a little bit too easy, but I know from being in that position as one of the slower drivers, you got to know who you're battling, and sometimes it's worth giving up a position to get more positions at the end. So Steve is now going to put a lot of pressure onto Andrew. Runs wide, and I think that will be Steve through quite easily. And also Tony. So Tony's up into third, and right on the tail of the first two. Let's see what Ronald can do now. He's got some clean air in front of him.
Yeah, clean air, and maybe Steve can hold on a bit Tony behind him and leave a bit of gap for Ronald before Tony catching.
We've got Justin in the pits. I didn't quite see what happened to him. Johnny's now making a move on Jarek.
And Steve at the front on Ronald.
Yeah, really good battle up the front now. So there's 4 cars in it. So Steve has gone past Ronald. Tony has now got past Ronald, and Rich Warmingham is right in the mix as well. He's going to be the next one to try a move. Late on the brakes, little wiggle, and gets the pass done.
And Andrew is right by Ronald now, where he was 1 or 2 laps before.
Yeah, that's right. So it just shows, what a little bit of passing action does. If you're in the right place at the right time, you can soon close them gaps. So Johnny is now passing Andrew, and so is Jarek. Andrew puts up a bit of a fight. George then goes to the inside. Oh, I think George maybe give a nudge there.
Yeah, it was a bit of netcode. But yes, little push to Jaroslav.
George gets it done this time. So, what's going on up the front? So, we still have Steve Lavalley leading the race, Tony Kloosterman in second, and Rich Warmingham in third.
Yeah, Steve is doing a great teammate job right now, holding up Tony, Richard. Maybe Rich can pass Tony and try to grab the lead.
Yeah, and Steve just gone wide there. And Tony's got the move done. I was just about to say, if Steve can hold Tony up for 2 or 3 laps, that'll bring Johnny right into it. But, slightest of mistake from a driver and Tony Kloosterman pounces.
Yeah, no, Tony just make the move on Ronald and he's just behind his 2 teammates. Maybe this can help him, because he can draft up to catch Rich and then pass both of them, and maybe catch Tony. Oh, and George is off the track.
You think we might have a multi-21 coming up? Oh, Steve's having to go back at Tony. He's going to try that outside move that George tried, but no, he's decided against it.
Steve is really impressive this race.
Yeah, there is a hell of a draft down that back straight as well. So it's giving all drivers an opportunity to make a pass. It's just the section at the end of that straight is so tricky to make a pass. But Tony's certainly not, leaving Steve behind. I think he pulls a gap through the twistier sections, and then Steve pulls it back down the back straight. So that'll keep going all the way. Let's go back. We've got Steve LaValle still in third, and Johnny Brandon chasing them down in fourth. Ronald Moon still sits in fifth. Jarek's in sixth. Andrew Hoffman in seventh. George McClay in eighth. Mike Frost in ninth. Vernon's in 10th. And Justin is still in the pits. Don't know whether that's a technical issue or not.
Rich is going for the side on Steve.
Yeah, Rich has got past him and managed to get it slowed down. That was impressive. And Johnny has got past Steve as well. So Johnny
Steve,
up to
Steve
third.
Move, yes. Great team effort.
That was a multi 2-1-3. Now, what does Rich Warmingham do now? Has he got the pace to chase Tony, or does he give it up to Johnny and let Johnny do the chasing?
I think for now, it's Rich's jobs to get Tony until Johnny is not close enough.
Yeah, I agree. I think the gap's too big between Rich and Johnny at the moment. But I don't expect Rich to put up too much of a fight.
No, it's true. But right now, he's far enough from Johnny, and he can help him with draft. He's not so far from Tony right now, so maybe he still have a bit of draft from Tony.
Yeah, and a message on the chat from Justin says Justin self-retired in shame after that ridiculous first couple of laps. So I don't know what he did, but yeah, he's hung his head in shame and retired to the pits for a cold one by the looks of it. Let's hope he turns up for race 3.
Rich is closing on Johnny.
Yeah, it really depends on what Tony's doing, I suppose. Whether he's lap time managing and just trying to keep Rich between half a second and a second behind him, or seeing how loose Tony's car was in race 1. I don't know if they've done any setup changes between races, but he might be afraid to push it too hard and just throw away everything.
Yeah.
But Rich is certainly no slouch because you would sort of half expect Johnny just to cruise straight up on him and Rich to move out of the way and let him go. But, Rich is still running his lines at his pace and saying to Johnny, come and get me and then we'll think about letting you past. And Johnny's still not on his back bumper yet.
No, Rich is really good now. I remember the past 2 years ago, we were racing each other, and now he's far away.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe this season, in my view, best improved driver is at the top of the field is going to be Harold Stadler, and probably at the back of the field is going to be Andrew Hoffman. But for 2 or 3 seasons before that, Rich Warmingham was the one that was improving week after week after week. When he started, he was, I know I'm not much of a benchmark, but he was definitely slower than me. Then we was racing on the same piece of track for a few races, and then he was out qualifying me, out racing me, and finishing in the top 10. And it was like, whoa, what's going on here? But yeah, he's done really well, Rich, and a nice bloke as well. So it's good to see him doing well. And again, back to the race, Tony is still not, putting leagues of space between them. So he's still got a chance.
Yeah, and just right now we saw Jaroslav put a move on Ronald. He's just passed him at the end of the back straight. So, job done for Jaroslav. 5th.
And message from Justin, he will be back for race 3. He had a bit of brain fade failure on the grid. So, yep, Justin will be back. So you may have said something about this whilst I was just reading messages on Discord, but Johnny has just done a 1:23.4 and seems to have lost a lot of time to Rich. Let's see what this lap time is as he comes up to the start finish straight. Straight, not straight.
I'm showing the lap time history on the broadcast, and Rich was faster than Tony the 3 last laps. So Rich is really, really good right now. He's 1 or 2 tenths faster than Tony each lap. Let's see when cross the line. Yeah, almost the same time this one. He's pulling away from Johnny.
He is, yeah. And like I say, I'm not sure where. Well, it looks like it's just on pure pace. So that's certainly good for Rich. But it'd be very nice if we could, have words in drivers' ears during the race. I think because I'm very interested, to know whether Tony is just pacing himself or whether he just can't get away from Rich.
Yeah, we should ask driver if they are okay to jump in the booth for an interview when they are racing.
Yeah, I've done it before, but I can crash on my own with no cars around me.
I remember
you would hate
that.
to drag one of these guys into the booth and then they spear off in a corner into the wall. I think that would probably be the first and last in-race interview we ever got.
Yeah, it's true. Yes. Tony made slight mistakes and Rich close up again. A bit more.
Yeah, looking at Tony's car, it looks a bit more stable than it did in the last race. So whether he has made some adjustments or whether he's just driving at 99% instead of 100, I don't know. Rich just doesn't seem to be able to get close enough to try and force a move or force Tony into a mistake. So I'm just wondering if Tony's just pacing himself.
It's probably something we can ask Tony at the end of the race.
Yeah, definitely. And Johnny, end of the last lap, he was a further 1.8 seconds behind. I'll just see at the end of the lap whether he's closed any on Rich.
On the last lap, Johnny was 3 tenths slower than Rich.
Yeah, Johnny seemed to have a couple of bad laps, but I don't know whether it was from mistakes or whether he just is genuinely slower than Rich Warmingham at the moment. We'll find out shortly because they're about to cross the line. And yeah, they've pulled out more time. I'm just wondering if it is the fact that Rich is in Tony's toe, but Johnny is not in Rich's toe. I wonder if that's making the lap times faster for these two up the front.
Nah, it's maybe this. Yeah. Rich gaining in the straight on Tony, and Tony is faster in corner. That's for sure.
So elsewhere down the field, after Johnny Brandon in third, we have Steve Lavalley, Jarek Sabula, and Ronald Moons. Then George McClay, Andrew Hoffman, Mike Frost. Vernon, I believe, is still running, but 3 laps down, and a retirement from Justin Rebelo.
Vernon is in the pits right now. Not sure I will race the end of the race.
Now then. I think this is the section of the track where Tony manages to pull away, but just looked up and Rich was very, very close. So we've probably got another lap, 2 laps maybe?
Yes, 2 laps I think. We have more than 1.5 minutes left, and they're doing 1:22, so probably 2 laps.
And Rich is sticking to Tony's tail, so this could be the first attempt at a move. Round the bone and onto the straight. This is Rich's chance. Good exit from both of them. Tony going defensive, so he's feeling it. Just parking his car in the right positions at the moment, but I'm sure Rich will get another go if he can keep on his tail.
One more lap for Rich to try something on Tony.
Yeah, little wiggle out the back of Tony's car there. They're still pulling away from Johnny, so well done, guys. So this could be Rich's final chance. He needs to be on Tony's back bumper. And he needs a good exit out of this one, which I think he's got.
Oh, yeah. Sideways for Tony.
This is the chance. Tony's going to go defensive.
He's already on the side.
Yeah, Rich has got that run. He had to go for it then. This is the difficult part of the overtake, though. Well defended by Tony. Oh, Rich nearly loses it.
Yeah,
so
it was great.
win for Tony Kloosterman and Rich Warmingham in second. Johnny Brandon in third. Steve Lavalley comes home fourth. Yarrick comes home fifth. Ronald is coming home sixth eventually if he gets around that corner. So George finishes seventh, Andrew Hoffman eighth, Mike Frost ninth, Vernon Wiley in 10th, and head in hands, Justin Rebelo in 11th. So, Possibly not as exciting as race 1, but very interesting to see the pace of Rich Warmingham, and the fact that chasing Johnny, chasing Tony, he was also leaving Johnny behind. So, yeah, still a good race, Sam.
Yeah, very good race. Very impressed by Rage pace. This one. The fact is he was able to stay behind Tony and pull away from Johnny. It's really impressive.
Yeah, certainly is. So we have, don't go too far, people. We've got race 3 coming up. And it will be a sunset race. So that does change things a little bit. So join us again in about 10 minutes' time for the final race of the night. See you all soon. And welcome back, everybody, to race 3 of the. I can't even remember what we are anymore. We are the Racetech V8 ESC Sprint Series. We are broadcasting live on ECA Racing TV. You have myself, Clyde Whiting, and Sam Boozin in the booth. And we are at No, we're not. We're at Road Atlanta. And it's getting dark. So, cars currently in practice now, coming to the end of practice, and the headlights are on already. So, it will be very, very interesting to see just how dark it will be at the end of this race and how that affects the drivers as well. So, a little message from Mr. Dave Jansen. We are live again. Come and join us. We always enjoy your comments on the in the chat. We have a few of the drivers that pop in, the ones that can't race, and send us some messages. So cars are gridding up. We are. It seems very, very bright on the start finishing line. You can't see that the cars have got their headlights on, but I can assure you that they have. So, waiting for the engine noise to rise. Justin Rebelo, after his race 2 disaster, is on pole. Vernon Wiley's second. Mike Frost is third. Engine notes have risen. And we are green. Great start there from Justin. Oh, very wiggly start from Vernon. Let's see what's going on. So Mike Frost safely around the corner. George, oh, that was very close. Nearly a little touch from Mike, but George is up there into, I believe, 4.
In fact, George is now in the lead. Justin
Okay, must have missed that.
Yeah, Justin went wide on turn 1 and George passed him. We have 3 wide with Tony.
Yeah, I was just seeing there's a knot of 5 cars there. And a little bit of a touch. Come on, guys, it's not even dark yet.
I see John in the pits as Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew Hoffman in the pits. Johnny Brandon must have took some damage at the start there. Currently 11th. So George McClay leads the way. Ooh, I'm a poet and I don't know it. Justin Rebelo, after his race 2 disaster, is in second place. A little bit of a kiss there between Rich Warmingham and Ronald Moons. Tony Kloosterman is in third, Yarrick in fourth. Rich Warmingham is now in fifth. So let's see if Rich has got the pace that he had in race 2 and he can chase these guys down at the front. So Steve LaValle is now putting a lot of pressure onto Ronald Moons. Looks like he might have a bit of damage on the left-hand side of his car at the rear. I don't know if that was just the camera angle that made it look like that.
Just went on board with Steve and Ronald has damage on the left-hand side.
Yeah, I just caught something out the corner of my eye, so it just looked a bit crumpled. So Tony Kloosterman in third position is putting pressure on Justin Rebelo. He's going to want to make this pass as soon as he possibly can to have any sort of chance of chasing down George. times in practice we're back in the 120s that we had earlier on when the track was cooler. So we'll see whether these guys can get down into the 120s again in the race. But Justin's putting up a very good defence on Tony at the moment.
We already have 20s. Tony put the fastest lap of the race with 20.8, and George is the second fastest with 20.9.
Good. So yeah, the race pace is up there. Obviously, the light is going to fade. On my screen, I can see the headlights look a lot brighter than when we started. Tony's now going to try the outside George move. And I think Justin's given up and let him go. So Tony Klosterman at the end of the last lap was 1.6 seconds behind George McClay. So it'll be interesting to see if he can make any gaps in that. Meanwhile, Johnny Brandon was in 10th, chasing down Vernon Wiley. We'll see whether that changes when we go over the line.
Yeah, Johnny just passed Vernon.
Yeah, just seeing it on the screen now. So Johnny passed Vernon, so he's now up into 9th, and his next target will be Mike Frost.
We still have a freaking battle between Ronald and Steve. It looks like they have been together in race
Yeah,
1 and at the beginning of race 2.
and they've got very similar colours on the cars as well, although different paints. They're the same black, white, and orange. So we won't even know if they've been trading paint.
Yeah, and Steve just passed Ronald right now.
So the end of the last lap, the gap between George and Tony was 1.8 seconds. So George has got clean air in the front. Tony has got clean air in second. I'll keep an eye on those gaps for you people. So 0.2 of a second off there for Tony. So he's got it down to 1.6 after that lap. And looks like Steve is pulling away from Ronald. Where has Rich Warmingham's pace gone? Johnny Brandon is still in 9th, chasing down Mike Frost. Jarek and Justin seem fairly close. I'll have a look at that one. Possibly not as close as it looks, although Rich Warmingham seems to have found his pace again. So he's closing right up on Jarek, who's a little bit wild round that corner. And that's really got Rich Warmingham up on his back bumper there. So Tony Klusman is definitely closing in on George. Gaps is down to just over a second, but we'll concentrate on this Justin Jarek Rich battle at the moment until Tony gets a bit closer to George.
Yeah, Tony was faster, 6/10 faster on the last lap than George.
Yeah, Yarrick goes defensive. Rich is going for the George McClay around the outside, but again, no dice. Although I would like to see somebody pull that off tonight, but don't think it's going to happen without a bit of assistance.
Maybe if we have some contact between Tony and George, we can have this different winner tonight.
Yeah, George and Tony. Tony was about a tenth quicker on that lap, so I don't know whether he made a mistake or whether George is just upped his pace a little bit. But yeah, he's certainly slowed down on his catching up, shall we say. In the meantime, Johnny Brandon has moved up to 8th, overtaking Mike Frost. Next target for Johnny will be Ronald Moons. And then he's up to his teammates again after that. So let's see if we can have a multi 2-1-3 again.
I think Johnny starts from the pit lane this time.
Yeah, I must admit I didn't look at the back of the grid. I was, looking at the guys at the front, seeing what's happened. Little mistake there from Justin. Is he going to? Yeah, I think he might lose out. He's going to lose out definitely to Yarrick. And Rich Warmingham is going to have a go as well, side by side. Good driving by both of them, and Rich manages to squeeze past. So, Justin loses 2 places there. But at least he's still going. Starting to look very, very, very dark now when we're only halfway through the race. So, Rich Warmingham, what can you do about Yarrick? And incidentally, Tony took nearly 4 tenths out of George there, so that's just over half a second now, that battle.
He's right behind now. And Tony sideways. Downhill to the line. Yeah, it's going to be a battle for first. The first.
Yeah, I'm going to switch to that now. I've just seen it's gone to, it says 0.3 of a second on the timing screen, but visually it's closer than that. So, can Tony do to George what George couldn't do to Tony? Just looking at George this is totally unrelated to racing really, but just looking at George from chopper view, and I always think that sort of diamond on top of the car is a Domino's pizza box. Just me thinking about food again.
Yeah, as we were talking food just before getting back in race 3, yeah. It's a bit too blue to be a Domino's pizza box.
Yeah, although in the dark, from the chopper cam, with food-hungry eyes.
Almost there. Yeah, that's true. Sorry, George.
Maybe that's why George is going so quick. Maybe he's got a delivery to make.
I'm not sure you have my address right now, but maybe yours. And Road Atlanta is definitely too far away from my place right now.
I think everybody's got my address. Even Mr. Kloosterman sent me something from Vegas this week, so yeah. So interesting, Sam. Tony closed a nearly 2 second gap to George, and now can't really do anything about challenging him. So is it possible that Tony used a lot of his or heated his tyres up chasing George down and is now going to take a couple of laps to settle, cool the tyres down, and then go again?
Yeah, probably. I catch him a bit sideways, like I said, downhill to the line. Maybe a couple of moments like that, and maybe the tires are not good enough to put a move on George right now.
And just looking down the standings, I see Rich Warmingham has got past Justin and Stephen Valley has got past Yarrick. So Rich Warmingham up into the podium positions again. Johnny Brandon still chasing down Ronald Moons.
Yeah, I can see in the app that Jarek did crashed, maybe. I will try to see what happened to him. So,
Oh, big moment for George. And I think Tony's going to get him. Yes, he is. So in the end, George made it easy for Tony. So come on, George, think back to race one and how the overtakes didn't work. Let's see if we can get something different.
yeah, sorry, we were watching back the incident between Jarek and I think it was Rich. They had slight contact that put Jarek out of the track, and I tried to catch back the pass from Tony on George. Yeah, it was right after the S's. Okay.
Yeah, so George went wide, got loose, couldn't get the power down, and Tony got past him.
Yeah, it's almost a gift from George. I'm not sure Tony was able to pass him.
Very, very, very dark now. So, slow coach Johnny Brandon has managed to get past Ronald Moons and drag his carcass up into seventh. Next on his hit list is Yarrick, but he's a good 4 seconds behind, and we're about 3/4 of the way through the race.
We still have two battles going on right now with Rich and Justin for third and George and Tony for the first place.
Yeah, just watching the George and Tony battle. George doesn't seem to be able to get onto Tony's back bumper, and I think it's causing him to overdrive a little bit, maybe, and he gets a little bit wild and loose, and then loses another bit of time to Tony. So hopefully that battle's not over, but I think that the cards are stacked in Tony's favour at the moment. Let me flick a little bit back down the grid. So, yeah, so Justin in front of Rich. Rich will want that third position back.
Yeah, it's almost the same as you said for George and Tony. It's half second since a few laps now.
Watching these guys racing in this lighting always wants the wicked side of my mind wants to throw a night race into the schedule somewhere.
Yeah, the headlights on these cars are not the best one, but yeah, night racing could be fun. And we can probably go for a lap on board with, let's say, Rich.
Yeah, let's have a look at Rich chasing down Justin, see if he can do anything. Just had to double check I was watching live then. So you can see from the onboard shots, just watching Justin's car, how much the rear end of this car moves about under hard braking and obviously under hard accelerating as well. Although as much as we say this car doesn't brake, doesn't turn, seeing the car in the right hands. It is a work of art watching these guys go round the track. The quick changes of direction, and the car takes it all and keeps on trucking. So possibly final lap, maybe one more, Sam?
I think it's the last one, yes. Less than a minute to go. And George is catching Tony.
Yeah, I'm not sure Rich is going to be able to do anything here, so I'm going to flick back to the front.
And we
very
definitely
close.
see nothing behind George right now. With the headlight of the car behind. We just see
these
that.
guys are 9 seconds in front of third place. And it is very dark now. Tony goes defensive. George pokes his nose out. Tony's got to the apex. Got a good exit. Round the last corner. And a win for Tony Kloosterman. Second for George McClay.
And just so Johnny just passed Jaroslav for 6th.
Yeah, Justin's going to come home on the podium in third position. Rich Warmingham in fourth. Steve LaValle in fifth. Johnny Brandon in sixth. And looks like Yaroslav in seventh. Ronald Moons in eighth. Mike Frost in ninth. Vernon Wiley 10th. And Andrew Hoffman 11th. I'm just listening to Johnny's excuses as why he was so shit in that race. Okay, so another good race, Sam. For me, it was another good race. One mistake from George cost him. Tony got past, although he didn't disappear off into the distance. We've seen that it is difficult to overtake round here. So when we get 30 cars on the track next week, could be interesting. But yeah, 3 good races and another good race night for the sprint series.
Yeah, really good night. I think 3 different winners tonight. Did Tony win?
Do you know what? I was literally just checking that as you said it.
Exactly. I can't remember
It was
who won the
Johnny
first
in
one.
race 1, wasn't it?
Yes, Johnny in race 1.
Did George win race 2? No, George was beyond.
No. It was Johnny in race 2, in fact. I can't remember. It's a shame.
What is going on? It only happened half an hour ago, and neither of us can remember what happened. Right, let me get the league up.
It was Tony. Tony won the last one. the second one and the last one. Yeah, so yeah, Johnny won, Tony 2 wins. But yeah, we saw great racing from the front end of the midfield drivers, should we call them, and a really good race too from Rich.
Yeah, definitely. So we have got Tony Kloosterman waiting for an interview. I'm trying to look at the results, and my screens are just doing weird and wonderful things. So I'm going to forget that and drag Tony Kloosterman into the booth. Tony Kloosterman, welcome.
How you doing, Clyde?
Yes, not too bad at all. Three very good results for you tonight.
Yeah, very pleased. The second race was very hot compared to anything that I practiced in, and that race was probably the most difficult. But yeah, good results. A second, 10th behind Johnny, and then a couple of close wins.
Yeah, we obviously in the first race, you had a battle with Johnny, or it seemed to us you had a battle with Johnny right at the start. And I don't know whether you cooked your tyres or something, but Johnny seemed to get away from you after that, and then George came at you, and then George got past you. Then George had a go at Johnny. Then you got past George, and then you had another go at Johnny. But Johnny seemed to stand firm and take on all comers.
Yeah, if you have the lead here, it makes it very, very difficult to pass. There's only a couple of opportunities, really, and you can make your car wide enough to, to fend off most attacks. But first race, yes, I absolutely cooked my tires twice, allowing George to get by, and then I only really caught up when George and Johnny were battling so hard there. So it made probably for good viewing, I think. I'll have to watch the broadcast later.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, race one was very, very good. Race two was a little bit more laid back. And obviously you got into the lead fairly early, probably on about lap 3, lap 4. But it again, we can't really tell from where we're sitting, but it looked like either you couldn't get away from the second place driver, or you was pacing your laps, running a race on the clock and just keeping a gap.
I wasn't pacing at all, and I have to give a shout out to Richard Warming. I mean, he ran a really, really good race and kept pressure up on me. I tried something different with the setup because of the heat, and wasn't quite to my liking, but was just enough to stay ahead.
Yeah, and then obviously moving on to race 3, George was in the lead, you got into second, and we were saying on the broadcast that the moves that George had tried in race 1 was, let's see if Tony can do to George what George couldn't do to Tony, and then in the end it was a mistake from George. You got past, and like you say, once you get into the lead, it's difficult to lose it unless you make a mistake.
Yeah, George was. I think George was comfortably ahead, and he made a little error coming out of the S's at the top of the hill there, and that part of the track, if you get to the outside, it's very, very bumpy, and get a lot of wheel spin. So I was able to get a good exit there and take advantage.
Excellent. So well done on your results tonight, Tony. And thanks for my little present from Vegas as well. Next week, main series, hopefully 30 cars on the track, difficult track to overtake. Sprint race is going to, the sprint race is, sorry, the feature race is going to be fun, with you guys probably at the back trying to come through.
Yeah, it'll definitely be very interesting. And the first 3 corners. Till we get to the back straight, I think we'll tell the tale of the race. It just depends on, who can make up a few positions there, and then once we get on the back straight, things seem to string out a little bit. So it'll be interesting for sure. It'll be important to get a good qualifier in, and a good result in race 1, and then we'll take race 2 as it goes.
Okie dokie. So thanks for joining us. Before we let you go, anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, our team, Never Quit Racing, Simability. You guys, obviously, for doing the broadcast. Thanks to EZA for broadcasting the series, and our main sponsor, Racetech, for the main series. Have a good day, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. As always, thanks for your time. We'll let you go. Okay, so Sam, I'm gonna, because I know how much Johnny goes on and on and on and on and on. I'm gonna bring George in next, and I shall let you interview him because obviously you are Belgian, George is Scottish, and no one's going to understand what either of you are talking about.
Okay, we should probably go in another room together. Welcome, George.
Evening, gents.
Well, Clyde told me we should talk together tonight because nobody will understand us, so I will do the interview for you. What was your race?
Well, race 1 was pretty good. I didn't qualify the greatest, but I kind of thought my race pace would have been pretty decent. So, obviously we started in. I was in third. Tony made a slight error, and then I got up and behind Johnny, and then you got a bit of slipstream on the straight, so I managed to have a couple of goes, but just unsuccessful. And then Tony ended up getting me back as well, so I ended up third, but it was a good race. It was fun.
Yeah, we saw you a bit further down in race 2. What happened to you?
Oh, race 2, I kind of off the line. Basically, the guy in front of me, I kind of meant the guy's name, but he never picked off the line. He was total stopped. So when I went and he never moved, I went straight into the back of him. And then after a few corners, I realised my car was really, really slow. Everybody was just pulling away from me. Couldn't keep up with anybody. So it was just kind of damage limitation there. And then I suppose race 3. I've realised in practice I'm not very good in the dark at this track. So I was like, hopefully I can get a good enough lead at the start so I can maybe get the win. But
Carrots, George, carrots.
is that the secret, Clyde? Is it?
It is. My mum told me.
So I basically it was only 1 second order, so I think when I was in the lead, and then Tony managed to catch onto the backyards. But I seemed to be doing all right still, and then I made that kind of error. I was going down the hill. I don't know what bit it's called, but I was going down the hill, and I put it into fifth instead of keeping in fourth. And then by the time I managed to get the car stopped, it made me run wide and gave Tony the lead to that one as well. So it was a fun night, but probably points wise, it wasn't the greatest.
Just a question from me, George. Race 1. Coming down the back, not straight, you go into that left-right complex. The people you were trying to overtake were obviously going to the centre of the track to defend, and a couple of occasions you went door to door around the outside, and then obviously for the inside on the next corner. We see a few drivers try that tonight. Nobody managed to pull it off. Do you think that is a move that's possible, or are you just putting your car there because there's basically nowhere else to go?
It probably could be possible, but you'd probably have to get your elbows out on the next again corner and push the other car a bit over so you could get the run, because basically you're having to sacrifice the next again corner and you lose all the speed, and then if somebody's close behind you, they can actually get a run on you as well. So maybe next week, if I'm in that situation, I'll maybe try the dummy and get to the inside, because it's probably the better run.
Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, your results weren't too bad, George. You had a couple of podiums tonight, and then you forget about race 2. But before we let you go, anybody you'd like to thank?
Well, obviously you guys for the streaming, the organising the league and all the effort you put into it and that as well. Obviously the team Tech Size Fitstyle Motorsport. I've kind of taken my eye off the practice a wee bit the last few weeks. I've been trying to build my rating up a wee bit. So, aye, that's it, I suppose.
Okie dokie. Well, as always, thanks for your time, George, and we will see you next week for the main series.
Right, thanks guys. Catch you later.
Yeah, thank you as well.
See you later, George. Bye. Gone. Okay, so hopefully everybody's ready for the race 3 excuses from Mr. Johnny Brandon. Johnny Brandon, welcome to the booth. I see your light was lit up then, so you was obviously in mid Tony appraisal.
Something like that, yeah.
So just to take you back, race 1, pole position, led from the start, but it wasn't as easy as that, was it? You had challenges from
great,
Tony, from George.
Yeah.
Very, very good viewing. But from your seat, what was you doing? Was you trying to get your foot down and pull away, or was that race mainly in the rear view mirror?
Bit of both. The slipstream is so big down that straight, you can't pull away. So not unless you got a big advantage. So yeah, it was just defend on the straight every time. So I think I nearly pulled away at the start of the race, and then I think I made one mistake and I think George caught back up at that point, and then that was it. In the slipstream, I think I was opening a gap through most of the lap, get on the straight. He was having to go down the outside. It's good fun though.
Was it just the track surface? Is it just a very slippery track? Because we, out of the I'll say the fast guys, yourself, Tony, and George, we see all 3 of you make a mistake tonight at some point in the race that either was or could have been very costly.
Yeah, I say the same thing all the time. I just haven't done any practice, so this was my practice for next week, basically. So I think I was on for half hour last night in the room Tony put up, and then I was in the room previous to the session starting for an hour, but half of that I was messing around doing something else. So it's just mistakes. You got to put the time in to stop making the mistakes. I'll be better next week, but yeah, I didn't make that many mistakes. And then obviously race 3, my computer messed up again. Wouldn't recognise my wheel. I had to leave, restart my computer, update everything, and missed the start of the race when I rejoined and had to start from the pit lane. So not having, for the 3rd time in this series that's happened. So can we up the gap to 20 minutes between races, please, Clyde? It's an official request.
Absolutely not. It's a lot better when you start in the pit lane. It's more fun. Obviously, you needed to get your excuses in for race 3, but race 2, another podium from yourself, starting from 10th position. Sort of had half an eye on Tony, and he seemed to get through the traffic really, really easily, although he then had Rich Warmingham had some phenomenal pace in that second race, and the pair of them were pulling away from you as well at the end. So
yeah.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing from your teammate?
That was good. Just let Rich get on with it. I was just going for the bonus points, the 0 incursions. I see George went into somebody off the line at the start, and he's the person I'm trying to battle with points with. So as soon as I saw that, I thought, right, he's lost his bonus. He's got damage. Don't get any incursion points. I caught up to Rich at one point. I got fairly close, got in the slipstream, and then I made a little mistake trying to avoid going on the grass again. And that was it. And I just settled for it. I just let Rich go for it. There was talk about it and giving me the place, but I didn't really want that when he had such good pace and was battling Tony. I said, just have a go at him. And it looked good from where I was, but just made sure I got the bonus points. third place is like the points for a win anyway. So I was happy with that.
Yeah, and I just had a quick look at the results, and George didn't manage to have a clean race in all three of them. So yeah, those bonus points always come in handy. So next week, main series, hopefully 30 cars on the grid. We've seen tonight it's certainly not an easy track to overtake on. You know, qualifying is going to be very, very important for you guys in the championship and up the front there. But then race 2, we get a big reverse grid. It's going to be a nightmare, isn't it, coming through on this track?
I don't know. I don't think it's as hard as you're saying it is to overtake. I think there's a couple of places where you can. There's one obvious place at the end of the straight, which can be tricky. But if someone defends, you can still. I've been done plenty of times around the outside there, so it's still possible. But for the top guys, it depends what their priority is, whether it's winning the race or getting the bonus points, how hard you want to race, you know. And coming through the field, it'll be interesting. You know, you can make that decision to be aggressive, take your chances with your bonuses, or take your time and look after the bonus and see where you end up. But there's various ways of doing it. I'll let you know what my plan is after the race.
Yeah, the only reason I say it's hard to overtake is because from what I was seeing tonight, most of the overtakes came from a mistake from the car in front rather than an out positioning manoeuvre to get down the inside or go around the outside of somebody. You know, there didn't seem to be a hell of a lot of genuine overtakes. It was more waiting for the driver in front to make a mistake.
Tony seemed to get through the field pretty quick in race 2. I don't know if that was mistakes in front of him.
I think, from memory, I think Tony had one of those Moses races where everything in front of him parts. I know he'll argue the point and say no, it was all skill and he set everybody up. But I don't think anybody fought him that hard.
I was being extremely cautious. So whether I'm like that next week, I'm not sure. But I just wanted the bonus points, so I was literally picking people off on the straight at the end of the straight, and that was it pretty much. But there are places you can go. You can be more aggressive turn 1. You can get people into turn 2 on the outside if you get a good run through turn 1. You can have a lunge up into the tight right before the straight. You've got the end of the straight. Yeah, there's opportunities, and it's very easy to make mistakes. So although you say, you're only going to get a chance to get past someone if they make a mistake is pretty likely around here. So it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a great circuit. I like this one.
Most definitely. Well, Johnny will be joining me again in the booth with Sam and Tony for the podcast on Monday. So in the meantime, Johnny, we will thank you for your time as usual. Let you disappear and have a cold one. But before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to thank? Or do you just want to stay silent?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, got you again.
Yeah, I said just you guys. All my
senior moment.
Mates. I think that might be me. We're all playing up again. All my XVR teammates, Simmortal, the usual people, and I'll have a look at the broadcast back and see if I can make some notes to have a go at you. Forgive me a hard time, Clyde, in the podcast.
I didn't slag you off too much. Well, a little bit. Thanks for your time, Johnny, as usual, and we will speak again on Monday. So get your guns loaded.
Yeah, I'm making notes.
Catch you later. Thank you, Johnny.
Good night, guys.
I couldn't get rid of him then. Right, so Sam, before we bring this shindig to a close, I thought there was some very, very good racing tonight. Thoroughly enjoyed the battle up the front in race 1. And thoroughly enjoyed race 3 purely because it was dark and I just love the look of these cars going round at night. So yeah, any final thoughts from you, Sam?
Looking forward for next week. I will try to make it. I love the track, and yeah, it's gonna be pretty hard with 30 car on track. We'll see.
Yep, and everybody that watches the broadcast tonight has seen how to defend at the end of the long straight as well. So yeah, let's see how easy it is for Johnny to get through.
Yep.
But yes, so it just leaves me to thank Sam. Obviously, he had his 2 hats on tonight. He was running the show in the background and also helping me commentate. Obviously, I'd like to thank our principal sponsors, Racetech, for their continued support in both series. The drivers that turned up tonight as well, and the little bit of banter that we had on the text messages. So yeah, just leaves me to say good night. Join us next week live on Apex Racing TV for the main event from Road Atlanta. Got it right that time. 2 races, sprint and feature. And we will see you then. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, and thank you, Luca. See you